August 2005, 5 college friends set out for a midnight adventure in the hills above Provo, Utah. Only one of them would return alive. The other 4 entered a small limestone cavern known locally as Gollum's Cave and never came back. By morning, rescuers would discover one of the most haunting tragedies in Utah's caving history. Gollum's Cave, sometimes referred to as the Cave of Death, lies near the base of Y Mountain in Provo, Utah. At first glance, it looks harmless, just a small hole in the ground, barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through. Inside, however, the cave extends downward into a narrow, water-filled tunnel. Conditions inside are treacherous: tight squeezes, freezing water, and dangerously low oxygen levels. On a late summer night, 5 young friends, all college-aged, made their way to the cave's entrance. The group had heard rumors about the cave's challenge and wanted to test themselves. 4 of them, 2 men and 2 women, squeezed into the entrance while 1 stayed outside, unsure about the risk. Inside, the cave immediately forced the group into single file. They had to crawl through a constricted shaft before reaching a sump, a passage partially submerged in cold groundwater. Without scuba gear, their only option was to hold their breath and push forward. The passage twisted tightly, with barely enough room to move. It was here that disaster struck. Oxygen levels were critically low. One of the cavers is believed to have collapsed inside the tunnel, blocking the others' way back. Trapped in frigid water with no air supply, all 4 drowned within minutes. When the 5th friend realized the others were not coming out, he called for help. Soon, police, fire crews, and cave rescue teams arrived. Rescuers found the cave nearly impossible to navigate. The passage was too tight and the water too deep. They had to pump out large volumes of groundwater before entering safely. After hours of work, recovery teams located the bodies of the 4 victims lined up inside the tunnel, each trapped in the suffocating crawl space. The tragedy shocked the Provo community and made headlines across Utah. Authorities quickly labeled Gollum's Cave as one of the deadliest natural traps in the state. Soon after, local officials cemented over the cave's entrance to prevent further accidents. Today, nothing remains but a patch of concrete where the entrance once yawned open. The Gollum Cave incident remains a grim reminder of how deceptively dangerous caves can be. To outsiders, it was just a hole in the ground. To the victims, it was supposed to be a midnight thrill. Instead, it became their tomb. The waters of the Wasissa River in Florida are famous for their beauty. Spring-fed, crystal clear, a diver's dream. But beneath its calm surface lies a cavern known as Big Blue, a place that has tempted and claimed lives. In July 2012, 30-year-old Joshua Cox entered the cave with little more than basic scuba training, chasing adventure in a place that demanded expertise. Minutes later, he vanished into the darkness. What unfolded inside Big Blue was not exploration, it was entrapment. And when rescuers finally reached him, the cave had already written another tragic chapter in its silent history. The Wasissa River winds quietly through Jefferson County in northern Florida, a haven for kayakers, swimmers, and divers drawn to its cool, spring-fed waters. Among its many springs, one stands out, Big Blue. From above, it looks like a shimmering circular pool hidden among the cypress, but beneath lies a yawning cavern system. The entrance drops sharply, a funnel of limestone that leads into submerged passages stretching far into the earth. For trained cave divers, Big Blue is a challenge marked by narrow restrictions, unstable silt, and absolute darkness once the light of day disappears. For those without proper training, it is a trap disguised as beauty. By 2012, Big Blue was well known within the diving community as an unforgiving sight. a place where one mistake could be fatal. Yet, like so many Florida Springs, its clear waters seem to invite exploration, an invitation that Joshua Cox would not survive. On the morning of July 21, 2012, Joshua Cox arrived at the Wassissa River with a dive buddy. At just 30 years old, he was energetic, adventurous, and already familiar with open water diving. But open water and cave diving are worlds apart. Joshua was not cave certified, and Big Blue was not a site forgiving of inexperience. At first, the dive seemed calm. Dropping through the pool's surface, Joshua descended into the cool blue funnel of the spring. Sunlight illuminated the limestone walls, the water so clear that it gave the illusion of floating in air. For the untrained eye, it was mesmerizing, almost too inviting. The pair moved deeper into the cavern, where the ceiling of rock closed overhead. Here, the environment changed. There was no direct path to the surface. The only way out was the same way in, a narrow, twisting passage. For seasoned cave divers, the golden rule is always to carry a guideline, multiple lights, and redundant air supplies. Joshua had none of these. According to later accounts, at some point Joshua removed his buoyancy control device to squeeze into a restriction, a maneuver only attempted by advanced cave explorers in extreme situations. It was a decision that left him exposed, stripped of vital control over his position in the water. His buddy, sensing the risk, soon turned back toward the entrance. Joshua did not. Whether driven by curiosity, overconfidence, or simple misjudgment, he pressed deeper into the cave, moving into passages where even the smallest mistake could be fatal. From above, the Wassissa River was still and quiet. But below, inside the twisting chambers of Big Blue, Joshua's dive was already slipping beyond recovery. As Joshua pushed deeper into Big Blue, the passages narrowed and visibility declined. Without a safety line to guide him back, orientation was fragile at best. The restriction he had forced himself through left little margin for error. One wrong movement stirred clouds of silt, swallowing the beams of his light until darkness pressed in from every side. His breathing quickened. Each inhale drained his tank faster, regulator hissing sharply in the confined space. With no buoyancy device, his control over depth and position faltered. In those final moments, panic likely set in. A frantic search for the way back, hands scraping against limestone walls, lungs pulling harder as air dwindled. When Joshua failed to surface, his buddy raised the alarm. Rescue teams responded quickly, but they knew the grim reality. Once a diver goes missing inside a cave, chances of survival vanish by the minute. Among those called was veteran cave rescuer Ed Sorensen, who had retrieved bodies from Florida's underwater labyrinths before. Entering Big Blue, Sorensen followed the passage into the restriction where Joshua had gone. The scene confirmed the worst fears. Joshua was wedged beyond the tight passage, motionless, regulator still in place. His tank was empty. Recovery required precision and calm, even in tragedy. Inch by inch, Sorensen worked to bring him back to the surface. Hours after he had descended, Joshua Cox was finally returned to daylight, but not to life. Big Blue had claimed another diver, proving once again that its beauty was never without peril. The loss of Joshua Cox shook both his community in Tallahassee and the wider diving world. Friends and family remembered a vibrant, adventurous young man, gone far too soon. For those who knew the risks of Big Blue, the tragedy was painful, but not surprising. The site had long been considered one of Florida's most dangerous, a place where even experienced divers tread cautiously. Within days, divers and safety advocates pointed to the familiar lessons. Never enter a cave without proper training. Never dive without a guideline. And never underestimate the unforgiving nature of overhead environments. Cox's death became another case study in why cave certification exists, not to restrict exploration, but to keep explorers alive. For locals, the river still looks serene. The spring still glimmers with clarity. But those who remember July 2012 know the truth. On a warm summer day in Florida, a father and son prepared for what they believed would be an unforgettable dive. They carried their scuba gear to the clear blue waters of Manatee Springs, a place known for its beauty and its danger. Families splashed nearby, unaware that only a short distance away, the spring opened into one of the most treacherous cave systems in America. Hours later, rescuers would recover 2 lifeless bodies from those dark tunnels. What began as a bonding experience between a father and his teenage son ended as one of the most chilling cave diving tragedies in Florida's history. Manatee Springs State Park lies near the town of Chiefland, Florida, where cypress forests line the Suwannee River. The spring itself is breathtaking, a pool of turquoise water fed by underground aquifers, its flow bubbling up to feed the river. Above ground, the park is serene. Boardwalks weave through wetlands. Manatees drift through the spring run in cooler months, and tourists enjoy the refreshing clarity of the water. It is a place where nature feels gentle and inviting. Beneath that beauty, however, lies another world. The spring connects to one of the longest underwater cave systems in North America, a labyrinth of submerged limestone tunnels stretching for miles. These passages were carved over thousands of years by groundwater dissolving porous rock, creating a hidden underworld of chambers, restrictions, and winding corridors. For scientists and trained cave divers, the system offers both wonder and challenge. For the untrained, it is a trap. The cave entrances at Manatee Springs are stark. Dark holes gape beneath the surface, leading into tunnels where daylight vanishes within a few meters. The contrast between the bright sunlit pool and the consuming blackness of the cave is dramatic. Many divers who enter describe it as passing through a threshold, leaving the world of the living for a place of silence and confinement. Florida's cave diving community has long fought to keep untrained divers out of such systems. The risks are extreme: disorientation, rapid silt-out that erases visibility, the narrowness of passages, and the unforgiving limits of air supply. Unlike open water, where a diver can ascend directly to the surface in an emergency, cave divers are trapped by stone. The only way out is the way in, and without clear lines and redundancy, escape becomes nearly impossible. Signs stand at cave entrances across Florida, including Manatee Springs. They carry blunt warnings alongside the image of a skeletal diver. Stop. Prevent your death. Do not go beyond this point unless you are trained in cave diving. These warnings are not symbolic. They exist because of the many lives already lost to these caves. By the early 1990s, dozens of fatalities had been recorded in Florida's systems. Yet the allure of the caves remained strong, especially for recreational divers who believed that their skills in open water would transfer below the earth. For one father and son, that belief would prove fatal. It was the summer of 1992 when the father, a man in his 40s, brought his 15-year-old son to Manatee Springs. The father loved diving and wanted to share that passion with his child. For him, it was more than recreation. It was a way to bond, to create a memory of adventure that would last forever. His son, full of youthful curiosity, trusted his father's guidance completely. Neither had training in cave diving. They were recreational divers, accustomed to open water environments like lakes, reefs, or quarries where a diver can always see the surface and ascend in an emergency. Their equipment reflected that background. They carried standard scuba tanks, basic lights and masks, gear adequate for shallow open water, but dangerously insufficient for cave diving. Most critically, they did not carry a guideline. In caves, the guideline is life itself, a physical tether that leads the diver back to the exit when visibility collapses. Without it, even a short foray can turn into a deadly maze. Still, father and son entered the water with excitement. Locals recalled seeing them smile as they prepared their gear near the spring's edge. Other visitors swam and picnicked nearby, unaware that tragedy was about to unfold only meters away. When the pair slipped beneath the surface and swam toward the cave opening, it appeared at first to be an ordinary dive, but those who knew the dangers watched with unease. They understood that the two were stepping into an environment that did not forgive mistakes. At first, the dive must have seemed exhilarating. Entering the cave, the father and son swam into water that was cool and crystal clear. Their flashlights pierced the darkness, illuminating rock formations sculpted by centuries of flowing groundwater. For the son, this was likely a moment of awe, an otherworldly environment far from the familiar. For the father, pride must have swelled as he shared the adventure. They swam deeper into the passage, moving past the faint glow of daylight behind them. The tunnel narrowed, walls pressing closer, ceiling dipping lower. The further they went, the more alike each turn appeared. Without a line to guide them back, they relied solely on memory and instinct. In a cave system like Manatee Springs, memory is unreliable. As they moved forward, silt on the floor and walls began to stir. One careless fin stroke is enough to unleash clouds of fine sediment, and soon the water around them grew hazy. Their lights reflected back at them in a fog of suspended particles. Visibility collapsed, shrinking from meters to inches. The once breathtaking passage transformed into a suffocating void. At that moment, the father must have realized their error. The exit was no longer visible. The son, young and trusting, would have turned to his father for reassurance. Panic loomed. In caves, panic is deadly. It accelerates breathing, depletes air faster, and clouds judgment. The father struggled to remain calm, to lead them back, but the way was gone. Disoriented, they tried to retrace their steps. Each passage looked identical in the murk. Every wrong turn led them deeper, not closer to escape. Their tanks began to run low. The sound of bubbles, once routine, became desperate. The son's air dwindled, his movements more frantic. The father, burdened by fear and responsibility, tried desperately to save him. In those last moments, the cave offered no mercy. The darkness pressed in, the silt choked the water, and their tanks emptied. Trapped together, father and son perished in the silence of Manatee Springs. When the pair failed to resurface, concern quickly spread among park visitors. Time passed with no sign of bubbles, no figures breaking the surface. Panic rippled above the water. Rangers were alerted, and soon the call went out for rescue divers. Experienced cave divers arrived, fully aware of what they were stepping into. For them, the mission was grim. Not a rescue, but a recovery. Entering Manatee Springs with guidelines, redundant air supplies and training, they descended into the same dark opening. Even for them, conditions were treacherous. The silt from the earlier dive still lingered, reducing visibility to almost nothing. The tunnels were winding and narrow, and every movement had to be careful. Slowly, methodically, they searched. Their gloved hands swept along walls, their reels extended lines, their lights pierced the gloom. After hours, the bodies were found deep inside the cave. The sight was sobering. The father and son lay together, victims of a system that punished every mistake. Recovery was slow and painstaking. Navigating the bodies back through the restrictions required immense care. Even in death, the cave clung to them, unwilling to release what it had claimed. The divers who performed the recovery carried not only the technical burden, but also the emotional one. Many of them had seen such tragedies before, but the image of a father and son lost together struck especially hard. For some, it became a memory that haunted them for years, a reminder of how thin the line is between adventure and disaster. When the bodies were finally brought to the surface, the waiting crowds fell silent. The reality was undeniable. 2 lives were gone, taken by the allure of a cave they had not been prepared to face. The tragedy sent shockwaves through the diving community. The story spread quickly, serving as a cautionary tale. At Manatee Springs, warnings were reinforced, and instructors across Florida pointed to the incident as proof of why cave certification was essential. The father and son's deaths joined a long list of fatalities in Florida's underwater caves. Their story became one more stark reminder that beauty and danger often coexist. The caves remained alluring, but for many who heard their story, the lesson was clear. Without training, without preparation, the cost of entering such places can be final. The Manatee Springs tragedy is remembered not only as a cautionary tale, but also as a story of love and trust. A father wanted to share adventure with his son, to create a memory together. Instead, they entered an environment that demanded respect they did not give. Their bond carried them in, but it could not bring them out. Today, Manatee Springs still flows, its water as beautiful and clear as ever. Visitors swim, families picnic, and manatees glide peacefully through the run. But beneath the surface, the caves remain dark, silent, and deadly to those unprepared. The warning signs still stand, stark and unforgiving. Prevent your death. Do not go beyond this point. For those who know the story of that day in 1992, the spring carries an echo of loss. It is a place of beauty, but also a memorial, a reminder that nature's mysteries must be met with humility, training, and respect. In the stillness of the water, the silence of the cave endures, carrying the lesson of a father and son who never returned.